On a few occasions, after my wife and I have told our 7-year-old no when she's asked if she can get a toy or candy or ice cream or something, she has responded to us with a very specific question. She asks us, "Are we poor?" There is a genuine concern in her voice when she asks this. It's not a sarcastic or rhetorical effort on her part. So we assure her that we have everything we need, and we proceed to explain that we don't just go obtain whatever we want whenever we want it simply because we want it. But I often reflect on her question, specifically how she phrases it and why she's so concerned about it. Notice her word choice. Are we poor? She doesn't ask, are we out of money? Or do we have enough money? She's not asking if we have enough of the things we need. Rather, she's asking about our status. She's asking whether we fit in a social category. Are we poor? I often wonder what she thinks the term means, and all the different social things that have informed what she thinks it means. The social status often associated with being poor is one of the many things that makes addressing poverty so challenging. It's not just about money or resources, especially when talking about poverty in the United States in the 21st century. Collectively, we have an absurd abundance of resources in the U.S. No one else in the world really compares. According to sources cited in Desmond's recent book, Poverty by America, we produce trillions of dollars more in goods and services than China. Our GDP exceeds the combined economies of the 3rd through 8th richest countries in the world: Japan, Germany, the UK, India, France, and Italy. Americans spend $550 billion on leisure travel in a year, and we spend $100 billion a year on our pets. $100 billion in a year on our pets. As a country, we have some petty cash lying around for discretionary spending, to say the least. And yet, poverty abounds in the U.S. Consider the following excerpt from Desmond's book. Quote, "If America's poor founded a country, that country would have a bigger population than Australia or Venezuela. Almost 1 in 9 Americans, including 1 in 8 children, live in poverty. There are more than 38 million people living in the United States who cannot afford basic necessities, and more than 108 million getting by on $55,000 a year or less, many stuck in that space between poverty and security. More than 1 million of our public school children are homeless. More than 2 million Americans don't have running water or a flushing toilet at home." End quote. Indeed, poverty is very much an example of what C. Wright Mills would call a public issue affecting millions of people throughout the nation. Poverty creates all kinds of what Mills calls private troubles in people's daily lives. Troubles like physical pain, hunger, exposure, illness, fear, victimization, homelessness, incarceration, anxiety and depression, and stigma, to name a few. Truly a tight knot of social maladies, as Desmond puts it. In light of all the data he cites, Desmond poses the question, why do we have so much poverty in a country with so much abundance? Answering this question, and there are several answers to this question, requires a use of the sociological perspective, or a sociological imagination, as Mills would call it. It requires us to see the role of social structures in our society and how they influence the daily actions, decisions, and routines among all of us in the population, not just the poor. Now, this is usually the point in the conversation when a lot of people get uncomfortable. And I get it. Recognizing our own role in contributing to the suffering of others is uncomfortable. But examining social problems sociologically is not an adjudication process in which we determine on an individual or group level who is guilty and who is not guilty. Instead, it is an examination of how our society is socially structured and how those structures enable and constrain social behaviors in ways that produce and reproduce those problems. In the case of persistent poverty, yes, we all bear some responsibility, even if we intend no one any harm, because we all participate in a society that structures social inequality into our daily routines. The flip side of that, however, is that if we all bear some responsibility, then we all have the capacity to do things that can help reduce poverty if we choose to try. The first step is to identify and analyze how and why poverty persists and how it is structured into our everyday routines. Desmond offers us such an analysis. There are many empirical examples that Desmond documents and discusses in the book. For this video, we will discuss one of those examples. Then, in another video, we will discuss specific ways we can alter our routines to reduce poverty. Let's make it as routine as we can. Buying stuff. We all need stuff. We all need to buy stuff, regardless of our social class status. We need money or access to money to buy stuff. And by stuff, I mean essentials as well as pleasantries. We need to put groceries in the fridge, gas in the car, toiletries in the bathroom, etc. It's also nice to grab a latte now and then. We also have the bigger items that are always there, necessities like paying the rent, paying the wireless or data bills, utilities, and so on. Desmond shows with his analysis that the banking system we all rely on for access to money we use to buy stuff is actually split into two parts. One part that serves primarily the poor and low-income folks, and another that serves everybody else. Both are part of the same overall system, and as we will see, both are interdependent upon each other. First, let's start with how this overall banking system is structured. Decades ago, think 1980s, the banking system was deregulated in a number of ways, part of which enabled banks to charge things like overdraft fees. So banks began charging things like overdraft fees because they could profit from it. And profit from it they do, but not evenly from all of their customers. Roughly 9% of bank customers pay 84% of these fees, and the average account balance of those customers is $350. In other words, mostly people living paycheck to paycheck. The fees add up, and banks, by rule, can charge multiple fees per day, easily turning an overdraft of a few dollars into a couple $100s of profit and fees. Also, banks can close accounts and deny new accounts to people with a history of overdrafts, but often not before those same customers provide a steady revenue to those banks through fees. This can hurt these people's credit scores. People living paycheck to paycheck, or who are between jobs, or who are unemployed, they miss payments for all types of things more frequently because their access to cash is limited and precarious. Missing payments, especially on credit accounts, can also wreck your credit score, which makes it difficult to get access to credit cards and other loans to meet expenses. Of course, managing credit is risky for people of low income, but buying on credit is both necessary and normative behavior for absolutely everyone in the population. Businesses, the wealthy, the middle class, and everyone else rely on credit to meet both necessary and luxurious expenses. Home ownership as we know it in the U.S. would be impossible if people didn't rely on credit, and people of all social class statuses tap or swipe their credit cards, or link them to their Google wallets and then tap, to make routine purchases more frequently than they visit the restroom on a day-to-day basis. Make no mistake, when it comes to using credit to participate in our economy, everyone is doing it. It just costs some people more than others, and those who pay the most, especially as a share of their overall income, are those who are low income because they're much more vulnerable to fees and penalties that are structured into banking practices. As a result, many low-income customers become ineligible for the types of traditional bank accounts and credit cards most people are accustomed to, and they collectively constitute a market for alternative cash loans. Enter payday lenders, pawnbrokers, and cash advance services. What if you're living paycheck to paycheck, but it's still several days until payday and they just turned the heat off in January? Or the rent is overdue and the landlord will proceed with eviction if payment isn't received today? And what if your only option to get cash to make that payment is the payday loan shop on the corner? People who find themselves in this type of situation, and there are many, many people who find themselves in this situation every week, are particularly vulnerable to being exploited by high-interest loans and steep fees that are part of their payday loans because they have no other options. 7 out of 10 people who take out payday loans use them to pay for necessities. To qualify for a payday loan, you have to show a pay stub, so by rule, these are working people. And these loans are bad. I mean, these loans are ridiculously bad deals for people. Desmond gives an example you can find on pages 75 through 76 in his book. Quote, "You take out a small loan, usually for less than $500, and are typically charged a percentage or fee per $100 borrowed. A charge of $15 per $100 lent might sound reasonable, but it equates to an APR of 400%. Most loans are for 2 to 4 weeks until the next payday, hence the name. Except when the loan comes due, you usually still happen to be broke. So you ask for an extension. If you took out a 2-week $400 loan with a $60 fee, $15 per $100, the loan officer might allow an extension when the original loan comes due. Then he will issue another fee, say for an additional $60. Just like that, you are charged $120 for borrowing $400. And that's if you ask for only a single extension. 4 and 5 payday loans are rolled over or renewed. The average borrower stays indebted for 5 months, paying $520 in fees to borrow $375. End quote. People only put themselves in this type of situation because they're desperate. They need cash immediately or something disastrous is about to happen to them. Their position in the labor market combined with the structure of the banking system constrains their situation so that this is the only choice available to them. When the alternative is homelessness or starving your children, all you see is the $375 you can have now, not the $520 in fees you are likely to pay for the next 5 months. But social structures also enable and constrain how many other people interpret payday loans. I cannot tell you how many times in my life I have heard people make some comment when they see or pass on the street a place like Cash America or Advance America, saying something like, "Oh, how awful. You'd have to be completely stupid to take out a loan from one of those places." And then they proceed to drive on by, stop to put gas in their car by tapping a credit card at the pump, a credit card for an account they have at a traditional bank that also provides the lines of credit to payday loan centers that then use the money to sell toxic cash advance loans to the working poor. Traditional banks are often the source of the funds payday lenders use to make their notoriously bad loans. When those among us who have more resources do very routine things like tap our credit cards to purchase everyday items, we are often contributing to the same banking system that makes payday loans possible in the first place. Just because people may not themselves do business at a place like Cash America does not mean they are not helping places like Cash America do business. That's because we are all participating in a broader, socially structured, and interdependent system, and we need a sociological perspective to see how its parts are interconnected through the things we all do in our lives. We often don't see these interconnections, and that can lead to trouble. First, as Desmond shows with many more examples, data, and analysis, it motivates many people to misidentify the sources of poverty, why it persists, and how people can get all but trapped in poverty. Second, it makes it really easy, too easy, to stigmatize the poor and blame the hardships of poverty on the poor themselves. Absent a sociological perspective, it makes it too easy to ascribe to the poor an unfortunate social status that we associate with them and what they do, rather than take a hard look at how our society is structured, our own role in it, and what we can do to alter it.